So where do you find freezer paper? In this 5-minute video, I'm going to walk you through the essential notions that you need to start freezer paper piecing today. My name is Rebecca Bryan, and after having a cover quilt on American Patchwork and Quilting, I swore off foundation piecing forever. This cover quilt, wow, it took me so long to remove the papers from that beautiful quilt. And in fact, I think it took my mom and I, so 2 people, twice as long to remove the papers from the foundation piece blocks as it did in actually making the blocks. I was so frustrated by the time it took to remove those papers. And I felt like it was time wasted because it was time away from my kids and it was time away from actually creating new quilts and making new quilts. And it was just so frustrating. And I remember swearing off foundation piecing forever. Happily, a friend of mine introduced me to freezer paper piecing and my quilty world changed. Everything foundation piecing was opened back up to me, and I was able to reclaim my love of foundation piecing, and I no longer was frustrated at that waste of time. And so part of my mission as a teacher is to spread the gospel of freezer paper piecing because I loved it. I love it, and it's changed my lives and it's changed the lives of so many of my students. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the essential notions that you need to start freezer paper piecing today. All right, so when it comes to freezer paper piecing, you must have freezer paper. So where do you find freezer paper? There's 2 different options for you. There is a roll of freezer paper, and then there are printable freezer paper sheets. So a roll of freezer paper freezer paper. I'm so used to saying freezer paper piecing. So a roll of freezer paper, this is probably something you can go out and get today at your grocery store. You are going to be able to find rolls of freezer paper in the aisle of your grocery store where the foil, the cling wrap, paper bags, where you'll find those things. You're going to typically find freezer paper in that aisle. You can also find freezer paper on Amazon. They might even be able to ship it to you today or within 2 days. The other option you have is Quilter's freezer paper sheets, and these are sheets of paper that you can put in your inkjet printer and print your foundations directly on to the paper here. I use this all the time. I am all in on freezer paper piecing, so this is what I use all the time. So if you know that you're all in on freezer paper piecing, this might be something you want to invest in. And when I say invest, it's under $20. So this is an under $20 investment. Whereas a roll of freezer paper, I think this is super cheap, like maybe around $5. I don't know. I would not do well on the Price is Right, just saying. So if you want to start freezer paper piecing today, all you need is freezer paper. But I wanted to spend a few minutes showing you some of my favorite notions that I use every time I freezer paper piece. So one of these notions is an add a 1/4 inch ruler. This is a pretty inexpensive notion here, and it's a really easy way to add in your 1/4 inch seams. So there's an add a 1/4 inch ruler. Now for you piecers that like complex piecing or tiny piecing, there is such a thing as an add an 1/8 ruler. So that's helpful. I don't use this one as much because I don't do a lot of complex or tiny piecing, but that is an option. The second notion I use is a rotating cutting mat. This just rotates your foundation so you can trim it and you don't have to move it. So that's super fun. The final notion that I use every time is my walking foot. So if your sewing machine comes with a walking foot, you definitely want to load up your walking foot when you are freezer paper piecing. The other thing I'll say is several of my students have said that the stitch in the ditch walking foot is just perfect for freezer paper piecing. So if you have a stitch in the ditch foot, you might want to try that too. All right, and then the final thing I will mention is when you are freezer paper piecing, you want to make sure your iron is nice and hot. That high heat is going to activate your freezer paper so it sticks to your fabric, and it'll make everything that much easier. All right, so those are the essential notions that you need to start freezer paper piecing today. Thanks so much for watching. Enjoy.